Steve Harvey has handled every type of contestant you can imagine during his years hosting Family Feud. He has dealt with nervous players who forget their own names, overconfident competitors who trash-talk their opponents, and emotional families who break down in tears over $20,000. Steve prides himself on keeping the show fun and family-friendly while maintaining respect and dignity for everyone involved. But what happened on this particular Tuesday afternoon in October 2024 was something even Steve Harvey was not prepared for. The Johnson family from Detroit was competing against the Martinez family from Phoenix. Both families were energetic and engaged, bringing excellent energy to the stage. But one contestant, 24-year-old Marcus Johnson, was about to cross a line that nobody saw coming. His comment would shock Steve Harvey into complete silence, leave the audience gasping, and create a moment that would go viral within hours. But what happened next proved why Steve Harvey is not just a game show host, but a teacher, a mentor, and someone who understands that sometimes the most disrespectful moments hide the deepest pain. Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. What you are about to see is a masterclass in how to handle disrespect with grace, wisdom, and compassion. This is the kind of moment that reminds us why Steve Harvey has been doing this for over a decade. The first few rounds of the game went normally. The families were competitive but respectful, the answers were entertaining, and Steve was in his element doing what he does best. But anyone watching closely would have noticed something off about Marcus Johnson. While his family members were laughing and enjoying themselves, Marcus seemed tense, almost angry. His jaw was clenched. His responses were curt, and when his family celebrated correct answers, he barely reacted. Marcus Johnson was the youngest member of his family team. At 24 years old, he had his whole life ahead of him. He was a talented graphic designer who had recently started his own freelance business. On paper, Marcus should have been excited to be on Family Feud with his mother Patricia, his uncle Jerome, his aunt Denise, and his cousin Tyler. This was supposed to be a fun family experience, a chance to bond and maybe win some money. But Marcus was carrying a weight that nobody in the studio audience could see. For the past 8 months, Marcus had been the primary caregiver for his grandmother, Dorothy Johnson. Dorothy had raised Marcus after his father left when Marcus was 6 years old, and his mother had to work 3 jobs to keep them afloat. His grandmother had been his rock, his protector, his biggest supporter. She attended every school event, helped him with homework, taught him to cook, and encouraged his artistic talents, even when others told him to pursue something more practical. 6 months ago, Dorothy had been diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The doctors gave her 6 months to live, maybe less. Marcus had immediately moved back home to care for her. He put his business on hold, turned down major client opportunities, and dedicated himself to making his grandmother's final months as comfortable as possible. He managed her medications, took her to chemotherapy appointments, helped her bathe and dress when she became too weak to do it herself, and sat with her through the long nights when the pain was unbearable. The Family Feud appearance had been his grandmother's idea. She had watched the show religiously for years, and when she learned she was dying, she made Marcus promise that he would go on the show with the family. She wanted him to have something positive to remember, something fun to distract him from the reality of her illness. Marcus had not wanted to do it. He felt like he should be home with her every moment. But his grandmother had insisted, and his mother had convinced him that taking one day to honor his grandmother's wish was important. What nobody knew was that Marcus had received a call from the hospice nurse just hours before the taping. His grandmother had taken a turn for the worse. She was still alive, still coherent, but fading fast. The nurse had told Marcus that he should prepare himself, that it could be any day now. Marcus had wanted to leave immediately, to fly back to Detroit and be with her. But his grandmother had gotten on the phone, her voice weak but firm, and told him to stay, to do the show, to make her proud one last time. So Marcus was standing on the Family Feud stage, trying to smile and participate, while his heart was breaking and his mind was 3,000 miles away with the woman who had raised him. Every second felt like torture. Every laugh from the audience felt like a betrayal. Every moment he spent playing a game show was a moment he was not spending with his dying grandmother. And then Steve Harvey made a joke that pushed Marcus past his breaking point. The game was tied going into the final question before Fast Money. Steve asked the question, "Name something people say they will do but never actually do." The Martinez family had already given their answers and scored 97 points. The Johnson family needed to match or beat that score to win. Marcus's mother Patricia went first. "Exercise more," she answered confidently. The board revealed it as the number 2 answer with 28 points. "Good start." Uncle Jerome was next. "Quit smoking," he said. Number 4 answer, 15 points. They were at 43 points with 3 family members left. Aunt Denise stepped up. "Save money," she offered. Number 3 answer, 18 points. They were at 61 points with 2 people left and 36 points needed. Cousin Tyler gave it a shot. "Visit their parents more," he said. Not on the board, 1 strike. It was Marcus's turn. Steve walked over to him with his characteristic smile and energy. "All right, Marcus, my man. We need 36 points to win this thing. What do people say they will do but never actually do?" Marcus stood there, his mind racing. He was exhausted from months of caregiving. He was terrified about his grandmother. He was angry at himself for being on a game show instead of being with her. And in that moment, looking at Steve Harvey's smiling face, something inside him snapped. "Spend time with family before it is too late," Marcus said, his voice cold and sharp. The answer was actually on the board as the number 1 response, worth 41 points. The Johnson family won. They should have been celebrating. But before Steve could reveal the answer, Marcus continued talking. "You know what, Steve? This whole thing is ridiculous. Here we are playing a stupid game show for money while real life is happening out there. People are dying. Families are falling apart. And we are standing here answering silly questions for entertainment." The studio fell completely silent. Steve's smile faded. The audience did not know how to react. This was unprecedented. Contestants did not talk to Steve Harvey like that. They did not call the show stupid. They did not break the 4th wall and attack the entire premise of what they were doing. Steve's expression shifted from surprise to something harder, more serious. He put down his cards and looked directly at Marcus. "Excuse me," Steve said quietly. His tone was not angry, but it was firm. "You want to say that again?" Marcus's family members were mortified. His mother reached for his arm, trying to pull him back, but Marcus shook her off. "I said this is ridiculous." Marcus repeated, his voice rising. "All of this. The cameras, the applause, the fake enthusiasm. None of this matters. None of this is real. We are just here to entertain people while our actual lives fall apart." The producer signaled to cut to commercial, but Steve waved him off. This was happening live, and Steve was not going to let it go unaddressed. The audience was completely silent now, watching this confrontation unfold. "Young man," Steve said, his voice calm but commanding, "I do not know what is going on with you, but you need to check yourself right now. You are disrespecting your family, you are disrespecting this show, and you are disrespecting me. Now, I have been doing this long enough to know that when somebody lashes out like this, it is not really about the game show. So I am going to ask you one time, and I want you to be honest with me and with everyone watching. What is really going on?" Marcus opened his mouth to fire back another angry response, but then he looked at his mother. Patricia had tears in her eyes. She was not crying because of embarrassment. She was crying because she understood. She knew exactly what was happening to her son, the pressure he had been under, the pain he was carrying. And in that moment, seeing his mother's tears, Marcus broke. All the anger drained out of him and was replaced by overwhelming grief. His shoulders slumped, his eyes filled with tears, and when he spoke again, his voice was barely above a whisper. "My grandmother is dying," Marcus said. "Right now. She is in hospice in Detroit, and I am here in California playing a game show. She wanted me to come. She made me promise. But I should be with her. I should be holding her hand, not standing here answering questions about what people say they will never do." The studio was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Steve's expression immediately softened. He understood now. He had seen this kind of pain before, this kind of displaced anger that comes from grief and helplessness. Steve walked over to Marcus slowly, purposefully. He did not say anything at first. He just stood there, looking at this young man who was clearly drowning in pain. Then Steve did something that surprised everyone. He pulled Marcus into a hug. "I am sorry," Steve said quietly. "I am so sorry you are going through this." Marcus broke down completely, sobbing into Steve's shoulder. His family surrounded them, everyone crying together. The audience watched in stunned silence, many of them wiping their own tears. After a moment, Steve gently pulled back but kept his hands on Marcus's shoulders. "Tell me about your grandmother," Steve said. "Tell me about her." Marcus wiped his eyes, trying to compose himself. "Her name is Dorothy. She raised me when my dad left. She worked 2 jobs to make sure I had everything I needed. She never complained, never asked for anything for herself. When I wanted to be an artist and everyone said it was a waste, she supported me. She believed in me when nobody else did." Steve nodded, listening intently. "And she wanted you to be here today." "She loves this show," Marcus said. "She watches it every day. When she found out she was dying, she made me promise I would come here with the family. She said she wanted me to have a good memory, something happy to hold on to. But I feel like I am betraying her by being here instead of with her." Steve took a deep breath and looked directly into Marcus's eyes. "Marcus, I need to tell you something, and I need you to really hear me. Are you listening?" Marcus nodded. "You are not betraying your grandmother by being here," Steve said firmly. "You are honoring her. She asked you to do this because she loves you and she knows how hard these past months have been for you. She wanted to give you something besides pain and sadness. She wanted to give you this moment with your family, doing something that brings her joy even though she cannot be here physically." Steve paused, making sure Marcus was absorbing his words. "I lost my mother in 2008. Eloise Harvey. Best woman I ever knew. And let me tell you something about mothers and grandmothers. They do not want their final legacy to be pain and suffering. They want their legacy to be love and joy and good memories. Your grandmother did not ask you to come here to torture you. She asked you to come here because she wanted you to smile again. She wanted you to remember that life has beauty in it, even when it is hard." The audience was completely captivated. This had gone from a game show to something much deeper, something real and raw and honest. "But here is the hard truth, young man," Steve continued. "The way you just spoke to me, the disrespect you showed, that is not who your grandmother raised you to be. Is it?" Marcus shook his head, ashamed. "No, sir. It is not." "I know it is not," Steve said. "Because nobody who was raised with that much love and sacrifice acts like that unless they are hurting real bad. And I get it. I understand. But let me teach you something that took me a long time to learn. Pain does not give us permission to hurt other people. Grief does not give us the right to be disrespectful. And the people who love us, like your grandmother, they would not want us using their suffering as an excuse to treat people badly." Steve's voice was gentle but firm, the voice of a father teaching a son an important lesson. "Your grandmother wanted you here to represent her well, to show the world the kind of man she raised. That man would not call this show stupid or disrespect the people around him. That man would stand up here with dignity and grace, even when his heart is breaking, because that is what she taught him to do." Marcus was crying again, but these were different tears. These were tears of understanding, of release. "You are right," he said. "I am sorry. I am so sorry." "I know you are," Steve said, "and I forgive you. We all do. But the real question is, can you forgive yourself for being human, for being scared and sad and angry? Can you give yourself permission to feel all of that without letting it turn you into someone you are not?" Marcus nodded slowly. "I am trying. That is all any of us can do," Steve said. "Try. And when we fail, we apologize, we learn, and we do better." Steve turned to address the cameras directly. "Ladies and gentlemen, what you just witnessed is real life breaking through the entertainment. This young man is going through one of the hardest things a person can go through, watching someone he loves die. And he is doing it with courage and dedication, taking care of his grandmother day after day, putting his own life on hold to give her comfort in her final days." Steve turned back to Marcus. "I want to do something for you. I want to make sure that when you leave here today, you do not carry guilt about being away from your grandmother. I want you to carry something else instead." Steve signaled to the production team. "We are going to set up a video call right now to your grandmother's hospice room. I want you to look her in the eyes and tell her that you did what she asked. That you came here, you played the game, and you made her proud. Can we do that?" The production team quickly set up a laptop on stage. Marcus's mother gave them the contact information for the hospice facility, and within minutes, they had a connection. The video feed appeared on the large screens in the studio, showing Dorothy Johnson in her hospice bed, thin and weak but alert. "Grandma," Marcus said, his voice breaking. "Grandma, I am here. I am on Family Feud, just like you wanted." Dorothy's face lit up with a smile that seemed to give her strength despite her illness. Her voice was weak, but clear enough for everyone to hear. "Baby, I am watching. I saw everything. I am so proud of you. I am sorry I got upset, Grandma. I just miss you so much. I know, baby, I know. But you listen to Mr. Harvey. He is a wise man. I do not want you to feel guilty for living your life. I want you to live it big and bright and full of joy, you hear me? That is what would make me happy." Steve stepped into the frame. "Mrs. Johnson, it is an honor to meet you, ma'am. You raised a good man here. He loves you something fierce." Dorothy smiled at Steve. "Thank you, Mr. Harvey. Thank you for taking care of my boy today. He needed that." "It is my privilege, ma'am," Steve said. "And I want you to know something. Your grandson just won Family Feud. He is about to play Fast Money, and whatever they win, I am going to match it personally and make sure it goes toward making your final days as comfortable as possible. You deserve that." Dorothy's eyes filled with tears. "God bless you, Mr. Harvey. God bless you." The video call ended, and Marcus stood there, transformed. The anger was gone, the bitterness was gone. In their place was something else, something deeper: peace, understanding, purpose. Marcus's cousin Tyler took Marcus's place for Fast Money since Marcus was too emotional to continue. The family scored enough points to win the $20,000. True to his word, Steve Harvey matched it, giving the Johnson family $40,000 to help with hospice care and funeral expenses. But the money was not the story. The story was what happened after the cameras stopped rolling. Steve sat down with Marcus privately and talked to him for over an hour. They discussed grief, responsibility, sacrifice, and how to honor the people we love even when they are gone. Steve shared stories about his own mother, about the regrets he carried and the lessons he learned. He talked about how easy it is to let pain turn us bitter and how important it is to choose grace instead. Steve also did something else. He connected Marcus with a grief counselor who specialized in helping young caregivers process the trauma of watching a loved one die. He set Marcus up with resources for continuing his graphic design business while managing his caregiving responsibilities. And he made sure the Johnson family knew they were not alone in this struggle. When the episode aired 2 weeks later, it became one of the most watched Family Feud episodes in history. But it did not go viral because of drama or conflict. It went viral because it was real, because millions of people saw themselves in Marcus's pain, because Steve Harvey showed what real leadership looks like when someone crosses a line. The response was overwhelming. Thousands of people shared their own stories of caring for dying loved ones, of the anger and exhaustion and guilt that comes with that responsibility. Young caregivers reached out to thank Marcus for putting words to feelings they had been unable to express. Hospice workers shared the episode with families to help them understand the emotional complexity of end-of-life care. Dorothy Johnson passed away 3 days after the episode aired. She died peacefully, surrounded by family, with the recording of Marcus on Family Feud playing on the television in her room. Her final words to Marcus were simple: "You made me so proud, baby. Now go live." Marcus took those words to heart. After his grandmother's funeral, he threw himself back into his graphic design work with renewed purpose. But he also became an advocate for young caregivers, speaking at conferences and support groups about the challenges they face and the importance of asking for help. 6 months after the episode aired, Steve invited Marcus back to his talk show for a follow-up segment. Marcus looked different. He still carried the sadness of his loss, but he also carried something else: strength, purpose, dignity. "You taught me something important that day," Marcus told Steve in front of the talk show audience. "You taught me that how we respond to pain defines us. I could have let that anger consume me. I could have become bitter and resentful, but you showed me a different path. You showed me that I could honor my grandmother by being the man she raised me to be, even when everything hurt." Steve smiled. "You taught me something too. You reminded me that behind every disrespectful comment, every outburst, every moment of ugliness, there is usually a person in pain. And our job is not to punish them for that pain. Our job is to see them, to understand them, and to help them find their way back to who they really are." The talk show segment revealed that Marcus had started a foundation in his grandmother's name to provide financial and emotional support to young people caring for elderly or terminally ill family members. The foundation offered grants for caregiving expenses, connected young caregivers with mental health resources, and created support groups where they could share their experiences without judgment. Steve's foundation partnered with Marcus's organization, providing funding and resources to expand its reach. Together, they helped hundreds of young caregivers access the support they needed to navigate one of life's most difficult challenges. The story also sparked a broader conversation about respect and accountability. Media commentators analyzed the clip, discussing how Steve had handled the situation with both firmness and compassion. Educators used it as a teaching tool about emotional regulation and conflict resolution. Parents showed it to their children to demonstrate that even when we are hurting, we are responsible for how we treat others. 1 year after the original episode aired, Family Feud did a special tribute to Dorothy Johnson. They featured families affected by terminal illness, raised money for hospice care, and highlighted the importance of end-of-life planning and caregiver support. Marcus was there, along with his mother and the rest of his family, to honor Dorothy's memory. During the tribute, they showed footage that had not aired originally. It was from right after the taping, when Marcus had approached Steve privately to apologize again. In the footage, Steve gave Marcus advice that had stayed with him ever since. "When people remember this moment," Steve had told Marcus, "they are not going to remember the disrespectful comment. They are going to remember what you did after. They are going to remember that you owned your mistake, that you learned from it, and that you used your pain to help other people. That is what turns a bad moment into a powerful lesson." Those words proved prophetic. When people talked about the episode, they did not focus on Marcus's outburst. They focused on his transformation. They talked about his vulnerability, his willingness to admit he was wrong, and his commitment to honoring his grandmother's legacy through service to others. The clip became required viewing in caregiver training programs across the country. Hospice organizations used it to help families understand the emotional journey of end-of-life care. Universities included it in social work curricula as an example of trauma-informed intervention. 3 years after the original episode, Marcus was invited to speak at a national conference on caregiver support. In his keynote address, he told the story of that day on Family Feud, but with a perspective shaped by time and healing. "When I stood on that stage and lashed out at Steve Harvey," Marcus said, "I was not really angry at him or at the show. I was angry at death. I was angry at cancer. I was angry at the unfairness of losing the person who meant the most to me. But I directed that anger at the wrong target, and Steve Harvey did something remarkable. He did not shame me. He did not humiliate me. He did not throw me off the show. Instead, he saw through my anger to the pain underneath, and he met me there with compassion and truth." Marcus paused, looking out at the audience of caregivers, social workers, and healthcare professionals. That is what we need to do for each other. When someone is hurting so badly that they lash out, our response should not be punishment. It should be understanding, not excusing the behavior, but understanding where it comes from and helping that person find a better way forward. The standing ovation lasted several minutes. After the speech, dozens of young caregivers approached Marcus to share their own stories. Many of them had similar experiences of misplaced anger and overwhelming pressure. Marcus listened to each one, offered encouragement, and connected them with resources through his foundation. Steve Harvey continued to reference the Marcus Johnson episode in his own motivational speaking. He used it to illustrate the importance of looking beyond surface behavior to understand root causes. He talked about how the moment challenged him to be better, to lead with more compassion, to remember that everyone is fighting battles we cannot see. The relationship between Steve and Marcus evolved into a genuine friendship. They stayed in touch regularly, collaborated on various charitable initiatives, and even developed a mentorship program that paired successful professionals with young caregivers trying to balance work and family responsibilities. 5 years after the episode aired, on what would have been Dorothy Johnson's 80th birthday, Marcus and Steve appeared together at the opening of a new caregiver resource center in Detroit. The center was named after Dorothy and provided comprehensive support services for families dealing with terminal illness. It offered respite care, counseling, financial planning assistance, and support groups, all free of charge. At the ribbon-cutting ceremony, Marcus shared a final reflection. "My grandmother used to say that God puts people in our path exactly when we need them. That day on Family Feud, I needed someone to see past my anger to my pain. I needed someone to hold me accountable while also holding space for my grief. Steve Harvey was that person for me. And now, through this center, we get to be that for other families going through what we went through." Before we close out this powerful story, please hit that subscribe button and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. This is about more than a game show moment. It is about how we treat each other when emotions run high, how we respond to pain, and how we turn our hardest experiences into something that helps others. The transformation of Marcus Johnson from an angry, grieving young man lashing out on national television to a compassionate advocate helping thousands of caregivers became one of the most powerful testimonies to the importance of meeting people where they are. The disrespectful comment that shocked Steve Harvey and silenced a studio audience became the catalyst for a movement that changed countless lives. Steve often said that the Marcus Johnson episode reminded him why he does what he does. It was not about the money or the fame or the ratings. It was about the moments of real human connection, the opportunities to make a difference when someone is struggling, the chance to turn pain into purpose. For Marcus, the lesson was equally profound. He learned that our worst moments do not have to define us, that accountability and compassion can coexist, that the people who love us want us to heal and grow, not to remain trapped in grief and anger, and that sometimes the greatest gift we can give to those we have lost is to become better versions of ourselves because of what they taught us. The story of what happened when a contestant's disrespectful comment took Steve Harvey by surprise is not really a story about disrespect at all. It is a story about pain, understanding, growth, and redemption. It is a story about how one moment of authentic vulnerability on a game show stage sparked a conversation that helped millions of people feel less alone in their struggles. Dorothy Johnson never got to see the full impact of what her simple wish for her grandson to appear on Family Feud would create. But in a very real way, her legacy lives on in every young caregiver who finds support through the foundation named in her honor, in every person who watches that episode and feels seen and understood, and in every moment when someone chooses compassion over judgment because they remember how Steve Harvey responded to Marcus on that unforgettable day. The game show continued. The lights stayed bright, the families kept coming to compete and laugh and celebrate. But for anyone who witnessed what happened between Steve Harvey and Marcus Johnson, Family Feud became something more than entertainment. It became a reminder that behind every person is a story, behind every outburst is often pain, and that how we respond to each other in those raw moments of truth defines not just who we are, but who we can help each other become.